Do you remember Sergeant Marshall? He was the 2nd Platoon's commander and only buck sergeant. And I recall when we were making an attack on a large position and we received fire from what amounted to be on the right flank. And he was forward by about 250 yards. I had to turn him around because I wanted to assault that position that was firing on us with 2 platoons. And when I did so, I could hear him coming. He had the whole platoon in assault singing the Marine Corps hymn. How threatening. Can you imagine being an enemy and having that sound come at you? You now know why the Scotsmen play their bagpipes. It's just amazing the kind of characters we had and how much fun we had even in a tight situation.
Sergeant Marshall's Ordeal. It was early into Operation Mead River, early into December 1968, and much later than Sergeant Marshall realized.
Sergeant Marshall, he was a little bit different. He would get grouchy at times and pretty strict.
I remember him as a leader in battle, a hero. I also remember him as a lifer, as a prick.
You wouldn't see him laugh too often.
Of course, those are admirable qualities to older Marines, but to us kids, it was reason to be placed on the radar screen of our payback machine.
So me and Mark, we set him for the night and slept together that night on a poncho liner.
I was repeatedly awakened during that half-sleep, half-awake time, lying in my 2-man hooch of plastic ponchos to the ever-so-gentle finger-prodding sensation to the portion of my body laying closest to the ground. With sleep being a rare commodity, I repeatedly tried to ignore the nearly imperceptible finger poking. I half dreamt that I was feeling it. Finally, in a thrashing, spinning, muttering motion, I rose up, rolled back the ground cover poncho.
There was these huge, huge worms under this poncho liner. I mean, worms that we've never seen nothing like this in our lives, worms this big. We thought night crawlers were big, but these were like 4 times the size of night crawlers.
It looked like an asparagus farm. Huge earthworms, having feasted for years on the corpses below us. Did I mention we were sleeping in a cemetery? Were sensing my body heat and seeking entry to the warmth they knew lay only micro inches away. I was disgusted, yet fatigued, so I slept.
In the morning, of course, everybody gets up and we rolled up everything and
so we played cards, wrote letters, visited, and even had time to think. Ha! The very bane of every lifer. Never, ever let the troops have time to think.
And we just happened to glance over and look over, and there's Sergeant Marshall. He's in a hammock, and he's sleeping.
He was sound asleep in his olive green canvas hammock strung between 2 small tipping banana trees. He almost looked like a fellow banana in his hammock. How peaceful, how vulnerable, how tempting, how irresistible.
So I looked at Mark, Mark looked at me, and I think we both thought about it at the same time. Hey, let's get a handful of these worms and put them in the hammock. So I says, no, maybe he'll get pissed off and either jump up and start shooting.
Sergeant Marshall was totally obsessed with a phobic fear of creepy crawly things, especially slithery snake-like ones.
About 5 minutes later, we thought about this again, and we said, no, we got to do this.
We burst nearly out loud with impish laughter. Donnie hung up a bunch of foot-long worms the size of your index finger.
So he was in his hammock. He had his poncho liner laying over him.
I tied the grommet eyes of that poncho together underneath Marshall's hammock. He looked like a sausage or a tamale, wrapped in corn husks, or a lifer right where we wanted him. It was great. Donnie and I poured literally dozens of the hideous flesh-seeking giant earthworm body hunters into both of the tiny restricted openings at the head and foot of Marshall's hammock taco.
And we went back and sat down, and a few of the guys couldn't figure out what the hell we were doing. And finally, the hammock started moving. Sergeant Marshall was waking up.
But we all knew it was about to happen, rustling, tossing, slowly at first, building a momentum and intensity that shortly gave way to screams and curses, wailing, flailing.
We see a leg kick out one side and an arm kick out the other side, screaming, yelling. This thing is getting all twisted up and getting ripped to shit. And he come flying out of this damn thing.
Ripping apart the entire banana taco tamale hot dog in a heroic final thrash.
Grabbed his M16, all pissed off, no helmet, no nothing on, and walked around to everybody screaming.
Who the fuck did this?
And nobody would tell him, nobody would say a word. We thought it was so funny, but yet when he come up and asked everybody, we just looked at him with a straight face. We would not smile.
It was beautiful. It was nearly epic in payback proportion. The occasional chortlings and choking sounds of stifled laughter only heightened Marshall's commitment of delivering justice.
I think he may have kind of knew a little bit, but he didn't want to come over and just say, okay, you two did it. I think he might have had an idea we did it, but he was scared, real scared. And we just thought it was the funniest thing at the time.
But it isn't until now that he can know the rest of the story.
Well, it's another long night out in the dark. The VC's bite is worse than their bark. Well, I get uptight when I try to stay calm. It's just another long night in the dark. It's another long night out in the dark. Oh, Vic's Charlie bite is worse than their bark. I get uptight when I try to stay calm. Hey, it's just another